With Israeli-Palestinian relations already on a knife edge, it could be getting even more precarious very soon. Shin Bet head Ronen Bar told Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu that the Palestinian Authority could be collapsing imminently. This is due to a lack of money, especially after the US pulled funding during the Trump administration, a lack of legitimacy due to no elections being held in the last 17 years, and an aging leader in Mahmoud Abbas. Netanyahu has been warned that if the PA does collapse, terror attacks in Israel will become more frequent and more deadly. Furthermore, a new generation of militants in the form of the Lion's Den are roaring into prominence, with members who are not only motivated, but too young to remember the consequences of the Second Intifada. The US has suggested that Israel should fund the PA to delay the seemingly inevitable collapse. But would that be counterproductive from the Israeli perspective? Could we be facing another Palestinian uprising, or is this just scare tactics for the worst possible outcome? Is there anything that the new Israeli government can do to prevent this, or are they just fanning the flames? Is the Palestinian Authority on the verge of collapsing?
So let's get to it. Is the Palestinian Authority on the verge of collapsing? As always, we begin with a quick fire round of 30 seconds each to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we'll pick up the debate right after. So Brigadier General Avivi, please take the lead.
I think that the collapse of the Palestinian Authority might be imminent. We have to say it's not about Israel. The Palestinian Authority is extremely corrupt. It's hated by its own people. It's broken into many fractions, even inside the Fatah fraction of Dahlan, Barghouti, Majed Fares, and others. And we see new groups emerging, the TikTok era, and groups that are not aligned at all with Fatah. And we also have Hamas and Islamic Jihad. So definitely we are looking at a future where probably they will collapse.
Mr. Najib, your 30 seconds are on.
Yes, I think the Israeli talking about the visible collapse of the Palestinian Authority is wishes more than a reality, and Israel will be the responsible for its collapse if that's happened. If it is collapsed, there are 3 million Palestinians living in the West Bank, then Israel has to handle the new situation. Without the collapse of the Palestinian Authority, the IDF operates half of its forces in the West Bank to chasing 20 to 30 armed men in Nablus and Jenin. So what if there is no Palestinian security here? That will be a big security chaos and a big work for Israel.
Last but definitely not least, Mr. Samer Sinjalawi.
Well, the PA collapsed. The leadership lost control already long ago. What's keeping them in position, what's keeping them in their offices is the support of the Israeli intelligence, the Shin Bet and the Israeli army. Without the Israeli security interference, these people will not be able to be functioning in their offices. But I can say that 100% and long ago, the Palestinian leadership lost control on everything on the ground.
Wow, it's fascinating to listen to the three of you, gentlemen, and please feel free to interact from this point onwards, because over the question of who is to blame for this imminent pending collapse, each and every one of you is providing a different answer. Brigadier General Avivi saying it's Abbas, the Palestinian Authority should blame itself. Mr. Muhammad Najib saying it's Israel to blame, and Mr. Samer Sinjalawi saying it's because of Israel that the Palestinian Authority still exists. So I will ask you once again, who is to blame?
Well, I think that first of all, it's not about blame, it's about reality. At the end of the day, the Palestinian Authority, although Israel is trying to sustain it, and that has been Israel's strategy for a long time, is not able to control, because it's not providing any solutions to its own society. It's already not controlling Shechem, it's not controlling Jenin, hardly controlling Hebron. This is not an Israeli issue. This is an inner Palestinian issue, and it will collapse because the Palestinian people don't want the Palestinian Authority, not because of Israel. Israel has had a long-time strategy of trying to maintain, and I agree that Israel has been doing everything, which I'm not sure is the right thing to do. I think the Palestinian Authority is a strategic threat to Israel, and there are other solutions, and not necessarily Hamas or Jihad.
Samer Sinjalawi, what do you think?
One person is guilty on all of this collapse of the authority. It's Abbas. Abbas continues to employ himself as president for 17 years. He continues to hold more authority in his hands. He is not in any relation to what's happening on the ground. You can see that the Israeli army is entering into area A as fun and sport on daily basis, chasing people in the middle of area A, killing Palestinians, most of them innocent, as if they are shooting.
You're addressing the operations there on the terror hubs.
Abbas is not reacting to anything. The economy is deteriorating. No services is provided to the people. 80% of the Palestinians are requesting Abbas to leave, to go home, and he's not responding. He's keeping his hands on the steering wheel, insisting to be the leader. You can imagine that a leader of a Palestinian people that is still under occupation, in terrible economic situation, facing a lot of security difficulties and a lot of issues on freedoms and rights, takes his family and 16 kids in a private plane, presidential plane, and goes to attend the inauguration ceremony of the FIFA, costing around 1 million euro for one trip for 16 privileged Palestinian kids, while 2.4 million Palestinian kids don't have access to good health. 1.2 million Palestinian kids in Gaza don't have access to drinkable water.
Mohammed Najib, you're listening. Mohammed Najib, you're listening to Samer Sinjalawi's j'accuse, so to speak. What do you have to say? Does Abbas have anything to offer to Palestinians at this point in time?
Well, the Palestinians want to organize elections to elect a new leadership, but unfortunately Israel doesn't allow them to organize those elections in East Jerusalem, which give an excuse to Abbas to hold or to postpone or to cancel those elections because his leadership will lose. And Israel conducted and organized 5 elections in less than 4 years, but doesn't allow the Palestinians to elect a new leadership. Regarding the relation of Israel with the Palestinian Authority, what is important for Israel from the Palestinian Authority is the security cooperation only. And I don't think this will last forever because the Palestinian Authority couldn't work as a security agent for the Israeli side. It wants to be a partner in a peace process and requires the Israeli economic and political support for the Palestinian Authority. But the Israeli leaders, the previous and the coming leaders, don't consider Abbas a partner or the Palestinian relevant to launch a peace process.
Before we dive in further into the Israeli aspect of it all, gentlemen, the Lion's Den saga, let's put it that way. Does the future belong to the young? We're now seeing speculation over Lion's Den 2.0. And my question to you is essentially, is there rise to an extent or in principle an anti-establishment move, so to speak, Mohammed Najib?
The young Palestinians wants, as I follow on the social media and in every possible way, they're looking to have to decide their future and to elect a new leadership. They have different visions of the current leadership that want to maintain at its position and to keep the privilege that it gains because being in the Palestinian Authority. But there are also problems. There is the economic situation, the difficult economic situation. There is no jobs for the graduates. They graduated from MA degrees. They go to work in construction in Israel. And it is difficult for the residents of the refugee camps and some towns to get permits even to work in Israel in this field. So they want to organize elections. But I think if the Palestinians get the right to organize elections, they can elect a new leadership that represents their aspiration and vision.
If elections are indeed being held, who will be emerging as the new leadership, Samer Sinjalawi? Will Hamas be gaining a momentum? Will a potential heir of Abbas take over?
Abbas is the one that is going to lose, but he's not going to lose to Hamas. He's going to lose to his opponent in Fatah, to rising young leaders like, comparatively young, like Marwan Barghouti, Mohammed Dahlan, even Nasser Qudwa, Jibril Al-Joub. There is a generation in waiting for more than 50 years. You know, this leadership has been in place not only after Abbas has been elected 17 years ago. This leadership has been in place since the 60s, and there has been no change. Abbas was always with Arafat number 2, and he now inherited number 1, and he continues. So almost 60 years of the same leadership, the same blood. I don't see some more cancer than this. People forcing themselves into their people. This is terrible. I think the elections does not ring a bell that Hamas is going to win. Canceling the election is giving a gift to Hamas, because Hamas is gaining a creeping authority every day, is raising its power every day. And if we want to give more power to Hamas, we should delay more the elections. If we want to stop the growing strength of Hamas in the state, we should organize the elections now, immediately.
Right. And this is in case there are indeed elections. But in the other scenario in which we are seeing some sort of a collapse, Brigadier General Avivi, who will fill the vacuum?
So it's important to understand that, first of all, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are not an option for a very simple reason. Even if they try to take control of a city or anywhere else, the IDF will intervene and will not let them take control. So I don't see any scenario where at the end of the day...
Even when we're seeing Hamas acting like they're responsible adult quote-unquote, in the recent flare-up?
Hamas is not a responsible adult. Hamas is a very harsh terrorist organization that is at the moment trying to take control of Judea and Samaria, and it's doing that in complete coordination with the Iranians and with the Islamic Jihad. Israel will never enable Hamas or Islamic Jihad to take control. So this won't be something that will happen at the end of the day. It might happen for a certain period of time, but then Israel will take this threat out. So really, it's about other options. And I want to remind that the Palestinian Authority is a terror organization that was imported from Tunis to rule local Arabs in Judea and Samaria. And I think that the population is fed up with this organization. By the way, Palestinian Authority conducts everyday life through the local leadership, through the Hamulas in the cities. And I think there is not enough talk about the potential of the local leadership
to emerge as a national
take responsibility of what's going on there. And also, I think that the most realistic scenario, the day after Abbas, at the beginning at least, will be anarchy. All the different fractions of the Palestinian Authority are arming themselves to the teeth, ready for war. All of them.
That's interesting, to actually give the power back to society, to the people. We will be discussing more of that right after the break, but we do need to take a short one right now. Brigadier General Avivi, Mr. Najib, and Mr. Sinjalawi are staying with us. A few minutes break, and we're back with part 2 of our summit. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us from Jerusalem, Mr. Samer Sinjalawi, from Ramallah, Mr. Muhammad Najib, and in our Tel Aviv studios, Brigadier General under Reserve Amir Avivi. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for staying with us. We're also staying on topic, but before we shift focus to the view from Jerusalem, or rather of Jerusalem, let's take a listen to some of Mahmoud Abbas's recent remarks.
Israel is enacting racist laws, consecrating an apartheid regime. Yes, apartheid. And if they do not like that word, that is the truth. They are an apartheid regime. Not only between Palestinians and Jews, they are doing so against our people before the eyes of the international community with total impunity. Israel did not leave us any land which we can establish our independent state in the frame of its frantic settlement expansion. Where will our people live in freedom and dignity? Where can we build our independent state that will live in peace with its neighbours? We want to live in peace with them, with Israel, where we will establish our independent state to live.
So let's get to it. Another quick fire round of 30 seconds each. How will the new pending Benjamin Netanyahu government impact the Palestinian Authority's state? Mr. Samer Sinjalawi, your thoughts.
Of course, the new government will be aggressive on the ground. It's a right-wing government, and we have been listening to voices like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir on how they are going to exercise some ideas, dismantling the PA, relaxing a little bit the opening of fire rules and etc. But I think this government will be a golden opportunity on the diplomatic arena. This government, it will erase the cosmetics from the face of the Israeli policy in the international arena. It will be a golden opportunity for us to expand our diplomatic relation and put more pressure on Israel.
Yes, I can see Mohammed Najib nodding there. Your 30 seconds are on.
Yes, the Palestinian Authority has a very difficult and bad experience with Netanyahu governments in the past, especially when Trump was at office. So I think they are very much concerned from having Ben-Gvir and Smotrich at this government, and they will suffer financial restrictions by the Netanyahu government, annexation of land in the West Bank, and maybe those restrictions will lead to the collapse of the Palestinian Authority.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, your thoughts?
Well, I think that the difference between this government and the former is, first of all, they won't see Abu Mazen as a partner. They will demand accountability. They will demand the stop of the funding of terror. We have to remember that although the Palestinian Authority doesn't have a lot of budget, it directs at least 50% of its budget to budget terror, and it incites in its education system. So the government will demand accountability, and also it will have to get ready for a possibility of a collapse and see what are the options that are on the table.
And in this respect, you know what, let's begin from this point. Is there anything the Israeli government can do to prevent a Palestinian Authority collapse? Should it engage in attempts to do it, Mr. Avivi?
Well, I'm not sure it should prevent it, because I think the Palestinian Authority on a global level is a strategic threat to Israel. Not only they're funding terror, not only they're inciting in their own education system, they're also managing the whole BDS movement, which is destroying the Jewish world. It's creating anti-Semitism, it's creating problem in universities. I don't see anything good coming out of this Palestinian Authority, and I think we definitely need other options.
So not to proactively engage in attempts to salvage it. Mr. Sinjalawi, from the Palestinian standpoint, does it really matter who is in charge in Jerusalem, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or someone else? Who are the cabinet ministers? Will there be any Israeli leader who will get a kosher stamp from the Palestinians?
I don't think there is a difference between any leadership, because Israel policy is determined not by the ideology of those are in the cabinet. It's determined by the red lines the Americans define for them. So the Israelis know their limits in the West Bank. Even when Smotrich come to the cabinet, or Ben-Gvir, they will start learning when they put the suit and get into the ministerial car with the driver next to them, and they will start realizing that they are part of the government. They will start learning that there are some limits, and the Americans are putting these limits. Nobody that can exceed them. Having a right-wing government that will do a lot of lip service, of vocal stupidities by identifying themselves as right-wing, by saying that we will create a ministry to transfer Palestinians to Europe to have some jobs there, or by saying that we will dissolve the PA, or by saying we will annex areas C, and we want to dissolve the civil administration. These kind of slogans will put a lot of pressure on the Israelis. They are going to take out the mask of occupation and take down the cosmetics that the other left.
But in practice, on the ground, nothing. Yeah. So Mr. Najib, I can see you disagreeing. Does it matter who is in charge in Jerusalem?
I disagree that the Americans have significant pressure on the Israeli policy in the West Bank. As since Biden came to the White House, right now the Americans convinced the Israelis to improve the economic situation of the Palestinians in the West Bank, to support the Palestinian Authority, but they didn't manage to doing anything right now. And they transferred the Palestinian-Israeli political conflict into humanitarian and services issue, and limited to issue work permits in constructions and in agriculture sector in Israel only. And they forgot everything about political process between the Palestinians and the Israelis. They just support the two-state solution, but they do nothing which will lead to the collapse of this hope between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
And maybe, gentlemen, just maybe, befitting all the previous peace deals Israel had, maybe Benjamin Netanyahu's full-on right-wing government will be the one to negotiate a long-term peace deal with the Palestinians, Brigadier General Avivi.
Well, I think that we have to remember what is the problem. At the end of the day, there is no one Palestinian entity. We left Gaza and Hamas took over. We left parts of North Samaria and Hamas or the Islamic Jihad are controlling Jenin. So basically, by us withdrawing, this will be the end of, for sure, of the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas will take over. The only thing maintaining the Palestinian Authority alive is Israel, and that I agree. And who are we supposed to negotiate to? Who is representing the Palestinians? Hamas in Gaza, who is controlling half of them? Or the Palestinian Authority that maybe controls a quarter of them? Or the Islamic Jihad? There is not one entity to talk to, so therefore I cannot see any way you can move forward with any talks when you don't have anybody to talk to.
Samer Sinjalawi, if Benjamin Netanyahu wants to engage in peace talks, who should he pick up the phone call?
Well, currently he likes very much the split among the Palestinians because he wants to avoid talks. He's trying to buy time. I think one of the strategic mistakes of the current political elite in Israel is that they are cheating their people. They are trying to explain to the people that the problem between us and the Palestinians is a security problem, and we are trying to use the military and our intelligence in solving it. And this is not correct.
But Samer Sinjalawi, if Benjamin Netanyahu wants to pick up the phone tomorrow and call a Palestinian leader to negotiate peace, whose number should he,
He doesn't need to negotiate peace. If he wants really to implement peace, he could simply withdraw from all the Palestinian occupied territories. Israel does not need a Palestinian partner to implement a peace agreement. But let him first of all stop his impunity, his support to Abbas. Let him first of all accept that the Palestinians will do elections. And then when the Palestinians elect a leadership, he will know who is the address. It's the elections that will decide who's going to lead the Palestinians. Currently, there is no leadership. There is a vacuum.